Okay, this lesson is something I taught in class, but if you weren't present, this is how you're going to get your instruction as you're looking at this. This is our two-part activity with weather stations. The first one is talking about drawing isobars. That comes at the beginning of this, and then I'll have a different video talking about how to draw weather stations, which will be important for the assignment and the big project that we have connected to that as well. As we're looking at things. So let's jump into this, right? We've seen maps like this before. We said isotherms before. As we looked at isotherms, we were talking about temperatures. So isobars has a lot to do with pressure, right? If you haven't watched the video with the notes yet, maybe it's still coming. Maybe I'm doing this one early just to get the teaching of this down. Maybe not. Right? But the connections to all this will make sense as you watch the first lesson and going into the second lesson, third lesson, all that kind of stuff. Pressure has everything to do with wind, and if we can understand wind, we can learn a lot about weather. So let's talk about how to draw isotherms. In general, let me pull it up. We got this is the task, drawing isobars. There's a nice handout that I have for you. Looks like this. It has all the different kind of tips and guidelines to this. In general, though, we're going to follow the same kind of thing. We're going to look for the lowest pressure system, right? Depending on what the map is, it might be as low as 992, could be higher than that. I think our first map is going to start a little higher. We're going to draw lines consistently. Our lines are going to be every 4. Right? So add 4 each time when we do those. So we go from 92 to 96 to 1000, basing on that. As we look at that, we're going to go in between lines just like temperatures as we do in that. Our isobars, these are going to be more like concentric circles for the most part, so they kind of follow the same shape, very similar to how our temperature lines would do that. We always label the isobars on the map itself. Okay. This first map, it kind of looks a little silly just because all the temperature lines are kind of the same, but we're always going to label those isobars. And then on top of that, then we're going to label our high pressure system, our low pressure systems, color them based upon what they mean, very fast coloring in this case, and then talk about wind direction of those pressure systems as well. But that was a lot. Let's just jump into this, right? So step number 1 when you're going through this is looking for what your lowest pressure system. You technically could start at your highest pressure system as well. We're going to start at the lowest one. That's the one I recommend. So as you're looking at all the different numbers, you're looking for the lowest number, and hopefully you're following on this 108. 108 is an increment. We can go 1000, 1004, 1008. So that is the line that we're going to actually draw. And so I would start and just go through the numbers like this, and typically, whoops, I don't know why I did that. Typically when you're done, then what I prefer to do is just leave a little space, and then I would handwrite on that 1008 in there, right? It looks a little silly on this map because if you didn't notice, all your numbers are going to match one of the lines that we're going to label, but future maps are not going to, right? They're going to go in between different things like that. That's why we have to have that label there to understand it. Once we do that, next step is increments of 4, right? So we start at the lowest, so now we're going to go up. So we add 4 to 1008, which would be 1012. So I'm going to find all the 1012s that are going to connect, and so here's one over here, and then do that. When it comes to labeling them, it's nice that you try to put the labels near each other, so I'm not putting one label here and then this one here and then the next one over here, right? It just helps to read it a little bit more consistent in that, okay? Okay, so that's number 4. Sorry, that's the second line. If we go up 4, we get 1016. And as you're looking across the map, we got some hiding down here. Let's see if I can scoot my map down a little bit so we can see everything. We got some interesting things happening, right? We've got all these 16s over here like this, and we're trying to make complete circles as best we can. You might notice that there's some 16s over here as well, which is fine that we have those. Sometimes we will get single lines that don't make complete circles, right? Depending on where you are at in the map and where your high pressure system and low pressure systems are. Every map will have a high pressure system and a low pressure system. Some will have more than one as you go with this. So I'm going to start here, 16, right? I'm going to come across, go down, complete that one, right? My labels are here, so I'm going to continue this trend, kind of put it in that corner. That's 1016 there as we look at it. And then this line over here is actually just going to be kind of its own solo line. It probably is going to more wrap like that, but we don't know exactly what it is. But we are going to label that line still, right? Even though we put a label over here, since they aren't connected, we need to have a second label. Okay? Now from here, there's not really anything else to draw on this side of the map, right? And typically what you're going to find is you're going to find kind of this break where the numbers don't make a complete circle anymore, or if they do make a complete circle, it's not around this focal point that you started on, your low pressure system. And that's what we're about to see, right? So if I go into the 20s, right, I would first, like your brain says, oh, I got to go around like this. But as I start tracing, you notice that, oh, wait, it goes this way. Here's the 20s. And that's the circle, right? And what that is telling you is that you've jumped into a different pressure system, right? If you've made a new circle that doesn't go around your original, your starting point, you're in a different pressure system, right? And so as we finish this one up, well, I forgot to label it, right? I put this label here, so I'm going to throw this label right there, and then I'll put this label. I jumped ahead and did the 24s already and put that label there. So we have our 1008, 1012, 1016, right? Another 1016 here, 1020, and 1024 millibars is what they all are. You don't have to put that NB there. We can understand that from the map. Next step is putting in our labeling our centers, right? We can see two centers. We got one center here, we got one center here. So which one is the high pressure center and which one is the low pressure center on this map, right? In the directions, I have specific colors that you need to use. And so I'm looking at my little cheat sheet over here. It says low pressure centers should be written in red and high pressure centers should be written in blue. So I'm going to change here. I'm going to make my line just a little bit thicker for this next part. And so low, right, I'm just going to put a large L right in the center there. And then for high, I'm going to put just a large H in blue, right? Now, the L in red and the H in blue actually have a significance. L is red for warm and blue is, H is blue for cold, and that's going to be a connection that we're going to see with the air temperature. All right, now that we have that done, the next thing that we're going to do is we're not going to color in the whole everything, but we want to kind of color in just the largest area. I'm going to switch to my highlighter, and we're going to use yellow to show clear skies and green to show cloudy skies. Highs always go with this, so I'm going to kind of just quickly, on my screen, my H is going to change colors because it does. Maybe I'll go back and redraw that one. I don't know if that'll, see if I can get the blue to stand out there. So it's going to look more like that. And then with my low pressure, I'm going to use a green color. And once again, I'm just going to go real quick. I'm just going to do the cell like that, and that just gives us a sense of what the conditions are like in that area. And I'll come back and I'll redraw this L in red. All right, so that's your coloring sequence. The last thing we want to understand is how is the air moving? Is it moving towards the center, or is it moving away from it? So is it converging or is it diverging away from what's going in? And so with low pressure systems, the pressure moves from high to low, so it's going in, right? And as we're going to learn, it always moves in a counterclockwise direction, right? We're going to use orange or brown on this one, so I'm going to change my color. I'm going to use orange like this, and so the air is coming in, right? So it's curling in. So I draw my arrow like this, and it's curling in, and it's going counterclockwise. So I gotta make sure it's curling in like this, and so, oops, that's not counterclockwise. That's clockwise. I overthought it, right? Like this, right? And I'm gonna typically draw 5 arrows is usually a good, and all these points should kind of point at the L because it's going into that system there. And then for our last color, we're going to use like a pink or a purple, whichever one happens to be in your packet. And now we're going to diverge. We're going to go away from that in a clockwise motion. Right? So clockwise. I'm going to draw about 5 arrows. Right? Mine might be a little bit larger than yours, but it should be very clear and obvious what yours is looking like. Okay? So we start at low pressure systems, so we go up by 4. Once we have all of our circles figured out, then we label our pressure systems, highs and lows, blue and red, yellow and green, clear skies, cloudy skies, and then we draw the arrows to show the connections. Okay, that's example number 1. All right, as we explore this though, it'd be nice if we could just stay super simple with all that stuff. But pressure isn't that consistent. Doesn't always move in increments of 4. So we got to be willing to go beyond that. Okay, so let's jump into this. We're gonna start over again. It's the same kind of process. You can go high to low, you can go low to high, regardless of what you're doing. If this makes sense to you and you get this and you weren't in class and you're ready to jump in and just do these on your own, right? By the time I'm done, you'll get a sense of what it should look like as you're looking at this. All right, then for example number 2, I believe there's 5 maps total again, and once again you're doing a total of 4. I'm going to go through this one again with you if you're willing to listen. All right. Okay, so first pressure system here, or our lowest number here is 989. 989, and that's a great number. That is definitely our lowest cell that we're looking at here. The problem is 989 is not divisible by 4, right? So if we started at 1,000 and subtracted 4, that'd be 996, 992, and then 988 would be our increment of 4, okay? Because 989 is bigger than that, the first line we're going to start with would be this line then, the 992 line is what we're going to start with, because we can't go smaller than our smallest increment. The good news is we do have some 992s here, so we can draw, right? And in this one, I have points here to mark the cities, so you're going to go ahead and mark your cities, right? Go through those dots for this map. That'll make it easier. I think in the next, eventually even the dots disappear as you get to other maps, okay? Okay, so we have this one, 992. The next number would be 996 we're looking for. But what's different about this map now is in between our lines is going to be anything that fits, right? So here's a 996, but here's a 995. And so that is smaller than 996, but bigger than 992. And so I'm just going to go around it like this. And there's a 996, and there's 996. And we always kind of scan and look and see if there's anything else that might be there. which there aren't, and we're going to finish that up. All right, before I get too much further, I don't want to forget to label my lines, right? So this first line was our 992 line. Our second line was our 996 line. Okay, next line is going to be our 1000 line, right? Once again, we got some good news, and very often you're going to see at least one digit that matches one of these lines. It's very rare that you don't have at least one, so it gives you starting places and stuff like that. But you're going to get stuff that we got to be careful about. Like this is a 1001, so that doesn't fit inside of here, so we got to go around that one, and then we're going to come this way, right? And now we have 103 here, sorry, 1003 and 99, so we got to go between these lines, probably a little bit closer to this than to this, because 1000 is closer to 999 than it is to 103. And then, right, kind of split the difference there, go through our 1000 there. So here's 108, right? And so 108 is definitely, right, we want to kind of get much closer here, okay, as we get to this 1000, and then finish it up like that as we're working through here. And what we're starting to see is what we're known as pressure gradients. We can see the difference, right? This is wider here, this is narrower here, so that means your wind is going to be much stronger in those narrower spots. Okay, next up would be 1004. So this is an interesting one because there's like nothing to actually, or very few to actually go through. Oh, here's a couple. All right, now that we're getting wider, we're seeing more. I go, oh, there's a 104 way down here. Don't miss that one. All right, don't get the 106. And I'm trying to make this video shorter, and I'm forgetting to label my lines, which is a bad example. Right. Here's our 104 line. All right, so don't forget your labels as you work with that. Increments of 4. Right, you can't choose your increments of 4. You can't choose your starting point. You got to use something based off of this. Okay, 08 is going to be our next one. So here's an 08. Here's an 08. There's one way over there. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go this way. Over the 5, under the 12, between the 12, split them. All right, I'm going to put my label in here. Actually do it right this time. 1008. And here we go. All right. Now, if you're looking at the map, right, we've kind of, right, there's nothing else to wrap around over here. And so now we're at our next increment with it, which is 1012. And so with this increment now, this is maybe where we're not going to have a complete circle. But we want, if we can get a complete circle, we want to put a complete circle. If we don't have a complete circle, we're going to kind of do what we did with isotherms and just say, kind of put endpoints on them and just make sure we label our line. So here's our 12, right? And we're going like this and straight up. And here's another 12, right? But there's no numbers over here. I can't just wrap it around and say, yep, that's what's going to happen, right? I don't know for sure. And so I just kind of leave the ends just off the map a little bit and then put my label in there so I know what's going on, right? Because I have nothing over here, it's okay to start a label right there, okay? As we look at things. Next is 16, right? So as you go to 16, right? Once again, there's nothing to wrap around, right? So we're going to kind of start here, go like this, just go straight up like that as we're working with that. And basically what that's telling us is these are kind of the in-between numbers. When you get these straight lines or these kind of, they don't wrap around anything, that means you're in between pressure systems, which means we're getting closer to our high pressure system and finding our high pressure system. Or another low pressure system if it starts going back down. This one's going to have a high pressure system, right? I'll put that label in there. I might actually move these labels up here just so they're out of the way of what we're about to do. Next would be 10, 20. Okay, so here's my 20. Okay. And so I'm gonna kind of go like this, like this, like this. And I'm actually gonna go around this, like that. Okay. Now we're gonna start going in towards our high pressure. So this is our 10, 20 line. 1024 is our next number, which goes right up close like that. Here's our 1024. And then we're gonna get this nice circle here for our 1028. And there we have it, right? You're going to have points that are not touching the line, and that's okay, right? It's just what increment is it, right? This is our 108 line, this is our 104 line, so anything in between those numbers, it's okay to be blank like that. On to the coloring then. I'm actually gonna color first just because of how the computer works. I don't recommend doing this first so you don't mess it up. But high pressure is clear, so here's my high pressure. There I go. First thing I do is I mess it up because I picked the wrong color. Alright, so here's my clear skies, right? And something like that, like it doesn't have to be confined to the lines, but we don't want it crazy and wild all over the place. Okay, it's just. And here's my green, right? So a nice light, the best way to do that is like a very light pencil, right? Don't push hard, very light, or else you end up losing what you already had there. Going back here, now I can put my colors in here. There's my L, there's my H, and then I'm gonna put my lines in there as well. So use orange. Remember, orange is going to it, which is clockwise. So we want clockwise. All right. So sometimes that's what I do. This is clockwise, and then just draw that first arrow like that. All right. And just arc it in. Harder to mess it up. That's what you're doing. And now counterclockwise, right, I go the opposite, and I just all right, do your best not to cover up your numbers, that kind of stuff. I made the mistake there, I made the mistake there. But that's the concept there that we're trying to explore. All right, next couple maps are gonna challenge you a little bit more, but we're getting it ready for our big map project, which will have some of those challenges in it. Okay, that's isobars.